Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Laid Back Life podcast, where we talk about how to love life, entrepreneurship, and improve daily. I'm your host, Jordan Ostroff, and joining me today, the most important guest that we have ever had in the history of time. And I am being recorded. You can quote me on that. It is my wife,
Mm.
Heather Ostroff. Hello, Heather. Thank you
Hi.
for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Finally, it
Yeah.
took you long enough to invite me.
Sure.
Hmm.
So we have this episode. You all listen to this a couple weeks before Valentine's Day because what we were talking about today is being a great spouse. And I don't know if it's the height of modesty to allow my spouse on a podcast to smack talk me, or if it's the height of vanity to have my spouse on, assuming she's going to say nice things about me. We'll find out which one of those it is as we get through this episode. But before we begin, Heather, can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
So my name is Heather, and I met Jordan 12 years ago when we were both attorneys. So I've been an attorney for a little over 15 years, and I practiced criminal defense, personal injury, little bit of family law, and education law and a couple of other areas of law. I'm now a law professor at St. Mary's University in San Antonio, Texas, which is kind of a dream job because I get to read law all day long and terrify students. Um, and I get to teach evidence, which, for those of you attorneys listening out there, was probably your scariest course, and I love it. And Jordan and I have now been married for 11 years, like 9.5 happy ones, I think is our joke.
So funny. You know, we met each other 14 years ago,
Really? Wow.
2012, over spring break, because that's why I
Mhm.
ended up watching your courtroom because the state attorney intern was out on spring break and I was not.
Okay, so 14 years. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I've been an attorney for so long and I'm still only 32.
Love it. All right. So last week we had Jonathan Paul on. We talked about learning for a great life. So books, podcasts, things like that. And again, like I talked about today, we're going to talk about having a great spouse, significant other, what that means, what that takes, and how that helps you have a great life. So, dear, you want to tell the story of how we first met? You are responsible for our meeting.
Oh, so I was a public defender at the time, and in Orlando, where I was working, I was assigned to one courtroom with half the alphabet for any case that was assigned to that courtroom, which also meant that I had the same state attorneys every single day on all of my cases. And one of the things that I like to do, probably because I'm a weirdo, but also because I was convinced that anybody who chose to be a state attorney over a public defender was choosing wrong, is I would introduce myself to the interns at the state attorney's office. And one day there were a couple of interns sitting in my courtroom. So I walked over and introduced myself, and it turned out that one of them was Jordan.
And I thought, like, oh, this cute public defender wandered on over and wants to chat with me. She must like me. She did not. Aggressively, did not. So,
Yeah. And he was very smooth in getting my number because it was a long while later that I was going to a happy hour for that one of my state attorneys had invited me to, and I didn't realize it was Jordan's birthday. And they were going to a second location. I didn't know where it was. So he was like, well, let me get your number and I'll just text you the information. And then he had it, and the rest is
yep.
history.
Is the rest history? So I couldn't get Heather to go on a date with me. In my defense, I gave up multiple times, but the prior to that courtroom, she had been in the courtroom that I was in as a state attorney, and so during violations probation day, the judge would get like all of his former people together and donuts. And so like every time I did not text Heather for a date without using the word date for several weeks, she'd be like, "Oh, when's the next donut day?" And I was like, "Okay, so she is still interested. She just doesn't want to admit it." And so our love blossomed over donuts.
Or I really like donuts.
Well, you do also really like donuts. I've
It,
come to
it
find
was
that out.
top three dessert for you, me, and Benji.
Yeah.
Should we shout out the judge?
Sure.
Shout out to Steve Jewett for Donut Day.
Yeah, donut day is probably what made Heather and I get married.
Hmm.
Because then finally, so Heather had run a Tough Mudder and I was signed up for one, and so finally I got her to go on a run with me. You can fill in how terrible I was.
So to put things in perspective, at the time that I agreed to go on a run with him, and I was just being a nice person because I do this for a lot of people, like you offer help and you don't think they'll actually ever take you up on it. But I had run a Tough Mudder and I was running between 5 and 8 miles a day at the time. And so he was like, "Oh, I'm training for a Tough Mudder." And I was like, "Oh, well, I did one. If you ever, want to go running sometime." He's like, "Absolutely." Didn't think he'd take me up on that. We met up to go running, and I think he ran about a third of a mile
Yeah. Hey,
before
I
heading
said
to
training,
Austin.
everybody. I want you to know. I came into this with honesty. I said I am training for a tough mudder. I need to work on my running.
And
Yeah.
just so you know, a Tough Mudder is 10 to 12 miles, and he had run about a third of a mile. So he did end up doing the Tough Mudder, and by that point, we were dating. So
I've done more tough mudders than you have.
I've done two.
Yeah, I've done three.
Oh,
I
okay.
did that one, I did one with you, and I did another one without you. Yeah. And I think you can admit, at least at this point, I run a lot more than you do.
You do.
Cool. So if you ever want to redate me and me take you out while you're training for a run, just let me know. We can swap roles 14 years later or whatever it is. Um, cool. So then we officially started dating, and then we got married pretty quickly after dating.
You had good health insurance.
I did, and everybody is going to think that's a joke. Legit, like we love each other. Legitimately, we got married when we did for my health insurance. So, as much as Heather is saying that sort of sarcastically, it is both sarcastic and true at the same time.
Yeah.
If your idea of vacation means checking emails from a chair in a different state, you don't have a business. You have a terrible job. Most of the time, it's because we have no vision and we're doing everything. I coach firm owners out of the day to day and into more of a CEO type role. Ultimately, they end up doing less in the business, doing more for having a great life, and then we tie that back into a way that actually grows their business. When you're ready to make that switch, click the link below to book a call with me and let's see how we can work together to help you achieve the life you've always dreamed of.
So, and then, so let's talk highlights from the time that we've been married. I know we joke about the 9.5 good years out of 11 probably being like the first couple months of us working together at the firm and probably being the first year of having a child for the most part being those terrible times.
Yeah. Yeah. So the highlights, man. Uh, let's see.
Don't take too long to think of any highlights.
I mean, a lot of our highlights together is really like the time that we spend together because we travel a lot and we do a lot of things. So, I mean, South Africa was our honeymoon. We did our 13-month road trip. We did other road trips. So, a month and a half in North Carolina, 2 months in New England. Our move from Florida to San Antonio, we turned into a road trip. I mean, the highlight in general is that like we want to experience everything and we actually do it. So that's definitely one of the huge highlights. Creating a child together, having a child together, highlight, sometimes low light, depends on the day or the minute, especially if it's 11 o'clock at night and your child won't go to sleep. But like our kid is fun and doing stuff with him and um
In my quest for transparency and honesty, feel free to tell everybody the story of how our road trip started.
so we were it was about mid 2021, so everything was sort of opening back up after COVID, and our son had been in daycare for almost a year at that point. But with the resurgence of COVID, it kept getting shut down, and it was really frustrating for us because we were both working, and one or the other would have to take time off to be with our kid because his daycare was closed. And I remember doing like a Zoom call at the jail with a client, and my son had like walked in and sat on my lap. And I was like, well, my kid is now in jail with me, like virtually talking to my clients. I don't think this is how this is supposed to work. But and he was 3 at the time. And he went to court with us several times because we really didn't have a choice. And so we had planned on doing a couple of weeks in North Carolina because that's one of our favorite places to visit. And we ended up making it about a month. And when we were there, Jordan was just like, well, what if we don't go back? And I was like, you're an idiot. How do you just not go back? And he said, well, like, if we plan to take care of our child the whole time, then we won't be surprised. And also, like, Florida's doing Florida stuff, and it's got to be better for us out on the road. And so we came back and he wouldn't let it go. And I was like, we've got a house, we've got a life, we've got a business. And like 3 weeks later, he was like, I'm gonna go, you can come or not. And I said, well, I guess I'm
Well, wait, hold on. Let me fill in at least one key part. So my business partner at the time, his wife was pregnant and due in a couple months. They were renting and like a tree fell through the roof and there was like black mold in their attic. And so then thankfully this was before the kid came in and like the black mold did not get like all the nursery stuff was still closed up. So I was like, hey, like if we go, we can rent our house to them so we don't have to move everything out. It'd be crazy. Like they're in an emergency situation with this. So like, we can give them a buffer to go like find a real place. So there was a little bit of like, the universe making this align.
Well, that was after we had decided that we were going to go, but we didn't know exactly when, and we didn't know how long we would be gone.
Oh, okay.
And so initially we had tried to sell our house, but that wasn't going to happen because of COVID. And and so we were thinking, well, maybe we'll rent it or something. And and so I said, okay, we'll leave in December. And then this whole tree thing happened, and Jordan said, by the way, I rented our house, so we need to be gone in October. And so we ended up, and he told me, he said, regardless of what you want to do, I'm going to go on this road trip with Benji. You can come or not. And then he told me that he rented our house, and so I had no choice. And we left. We didn't know exactly how long we'd be gone. I think at the time that we got to San Diego, I was like, I'm done. We got to go back. But then at that point, we were there, and it didn't make sense.
Did you really? You want to go back that early?
Yeah, we had a conversation about it. It was a lot of planning. It was
I
a
know
lot, and I did all the planning.
yeah.
I did all the planning.
I did almost all the driving.
What you don't realize when you're planning for something like this, and we did mostly Airbnbs, is how varied the definition of household amenities are,
Like air conditioning.
especially air conditioning. So it wasn't good enough to sort by houses that had air conditioning. I had to search through the pictures to make sure that they weren't wall units or split AC or whatever, because we went to one place that had a swamp cooler, and we went to another one that had a window unit in a two-bedroom house, and the only window unit was in the living room that did not point in any way
And
towards the
wi-
master bedroom.
and I want to be very clear. So Heather organized this whole thing where we were going to be in the south during the winter and then be north during the summer. We still caught snow in I think 7 different states with this whole plan.
More than
And
that.
more than that, more than 7 states hit snow like in over a series of several months. And then in the north, we caught like 99-degree weather in Bend, Oregon. It was 110
110.
degrees in Boise, Idaho. So like all these places where we intentionally were like, hey, we're going north at a time where the weather should be nice. It was insane. And so like we actually vacated a couple places because the air conditioning like could not keep up and we were all just like drenched in sweat inside. But with us having thought that like the geographics would make sense for all of this.
Yes. And, doing all the research to figure out how long to stay in each location. We were trying to stay no more than 3 to 4 hours apart from each location. Um, and then sometimes things would just change in the middle of the road trip. I remember that when we were going from Bend to Boise, we were supposed to stop and stay in the John Day fossil beds. Do you remember that?
Yes, which
And
they're awesome. They are so cool. It's like being on Mars, but it was 115.
it was like 115 degrees because I didn't realize that like all of Oregon, once you get past the Sierra Nevada mountains, is that Sierra Nevada or the
I
Cascades?
I
the
don't know.
mountains in
Whatever.
Oregon. Once you get past that, it's a desert. And so not
Yeah.
only was it like 100 and Bend, but it was even hotter in the desert. So we went and saw the fossil beds and we were supposed to be there overnight. It was so hot that we would get out, do like a quarter-mile walk and get back in the car.
Yeah, like we drove the car as close as we could to everything and then like grabbed an umbrella and we're like walking with the umbrella shade. This is how like oppressively hot it was.
Yeah, and so then we went to the town where we were supposed to be staying, and it was this motel that I had booked. It was the only lodging in town, and it wasn't open for check-in. Do you remember that? That they had like
Yeah,
an
we
office
were
to
sitting
check
in
in?
Subway. We
And
ordered
so we
cookies and a couple drinks at Subway because we were drenched in sweat and hungry.
So we were calling the hotel desk at the subway to try and cancel it to drive straight to Boise instead. And I think at some point we just gave up trying to reach them and just went ahead and went to Boise and we're like, if we lose the payment, we lose the payment, but
Yeah.
we can't stay here. So there were, it was stuff like that that was stressful. But honestly, like having somebody who is also flexible makes a huge difference, right? Like we had a few times where our plans got derailed, and there were certainly times that we both lost our tempers over it, or one or the other got really frustrated. But ultimately, I think that we are more adaptable and flexible than a lot of people. And I also think it was very important to show Benji how when things don't go as planned or when you need to change directions, how it's not a overwhelming obstacle that you're just like, okay, like new plan, let's go do this instead.
And in my defense, I would like to think that the same manner with which I pushed forward this road trip is also the same manner that I pushed you to take the job that you currently have.
Yes, it did not require as much convincing.
Well, but you were like, how am I going to do this to our child? How am I going to do this to our business? How am I going to do this to our life? And I was like, you have to take this. Like, you have to do it. There is no choice.
Right.
We will make it
It
work.
would have been such an easy step if I didn't have you and Benji because I've
Okay.
moved. So I was born in Indiana. I moved to Lakeland, Florida when I was in elementary. I went off to college at Florida. And when I did that, my parents moved to Georgia. So then I lived with them in Georgia, and then I went to the UGA for law school. And when I did that, they moved to Knoxville. And then I studied for the bar and lived with them in Knoxville for 8 months. And then when I did that, they moved to Oklahoma. And then I moved to Orlando. And so I have that experience of moving to places where I don't know people and just having to be uncomfortable until I got my footing. But that's not what you've ever done. And that's not what Benji's ever done. And I know how hard it is. And Benji was at such a great school. And you and I had built the most amazing community of people in Orlando. Um, that
And a business, and we are only licensed in Florida, and like there's other things, like your parents moved for jobs. Like we were moving away from our job into a different job, a different career for you.
Right. And out of all of the places that I thought, well, one day maybe we'll retire here or, whatever, like Texas was not on my radar. And I will say that the road trip was probably the reason why we ended up here because one of the cool things that we got to experience is as we were going through, we tried to stay long enough in every place in order to really experience the place. And a lot of it was because you and I both needed days to work. So
Right.
it's not like, oh, you only need 2 days to see this city. So you're there for 2 days. We would be there for 4 or 5 at least because we would trade off working. Um, but anywhere you travel, you always imagine, could I live here? What would it be like living here? And San Antonio was one of probably like 4 or 5 cities that we went to that I was like, this would be a cool place to live. And so,
Well, and having a law school, and I mean, I just
yeah,
to me the funniest thing to me is so our son will turn 8 in a couple months. So in theory, he's been alive for 8 Christmases. He has spent 2 of those in San Antonio, despite the fact that we only lived here for like 4 months. And he spent, I think, 3 of them in Orlando. So like even, it's so funny to sit here and and be like, oh, that's where we live. But like, really, we weren't. We were out on the road trip for, two of them. We went to your parents, your sister. We went on a cruise for one of them. Like, we just weren't there anyway, which I just thought was funny.
Yeah, we like to do things.
Yeah.
But yeah, ultimately, being like having done these things and knowing that we could adapt to different things made it a lot easier. And I think you could tell that this would be not just an opportunity for me, but a truly good job opportunity for me. And so, this whole time I was debating, like, can I really pick up and move our whole family? And ultimately the reason I said yes is because you said, yeah. I mean, like we've displaced ourselves before and it worked out and we can do it again. And, and if it's to take a step in the right direction, then we'll do it.
When I first started my firm, my dream was to be able to clone myself so that I could do everything. At some point, I realized that was my nightmare, and that's when my firm achieved actual success. Because I'm good at some things and terrible at most things. So it's not about replicating me, it's about finding and hiring people whose talents are my weaknesses. If you want a chance to get a copy of that and implement it, including how to incorporate AI and other modern technology, click the link below and buy our hiring process SOP and ultimately find success a lot faster than I did.
Cool. All right. So,
I
want to
do
dive
want to
into
say
that?
though that I think
Oh,
it's
yeah.
funny because in the major steps that you have taken, you've pushed yourself out of the nest and I haven't needed to. Like I need that push, but you don't.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're going to talk about that in the second half of this conversation.
Okay.
So you're watching this on a Tuesday. This Friday, the newsletter is running your law firm like Ted Lasso. So I took 5 tips from the Ted Lasso show. I was hoping to try to time this article a little bit better with when the season would come out. It didn't work. So enjoy it now. Go back, rewatch the show. There's some really cool stuff in there. All right, so I want to talk about that. Like when it comes to finding a great spouse, a great husband, wife, a great partner, a great whatever you want to call the person that is going to be most responsible for being there with you. What do you think is important to have in that person?
That's tough because we've met a lot of other couples who own businesses together that have like very similar approaches to things or very opposite approaches to things. So I don't necessarily think there's one like right compatibility thing. I think that you and I are very opposite in how we approach business. I am very scared to take risks and do not want to put myself out there or take big leaps. And you're just like, whatever, let's try it. What's the worst that happens? We lose $100,000. We'll learn something. And so, like for us, that has worked really well. I think a lot of it's because I trust you completely. Like I trust you when you tell me something's going to work out, even if it completely fails, that we'll still be fine and it will still work out.
So
And
far,
that,
so good.
right?
And I have life insurance if not.
That's
So, you know.
right. That's probably like the most important thing in owning that business with your spouse is can you trust them to, that when they make those assurances, that when they make those decisions, that they believe in themselves and that you can believe them as well. And I think like with our business, the reason why we had such a horrible time our first year working together is because one, I don't think that we necessarily trusted each other. And so we were constantly stepping over each other because neither of us knew what we were doing. We were both trying to figure
Well, I think that both of us had the same skill set. Like at that time, I think both of us were really good attorneys. Neither of us were better at marketing. Neither of us were better at, like it was so similar. And so I don't know that it was necessarily a trust thing. It was just like, you had to focus on overseeing the lawyers and doing the legal work, and then I had to focus on running the business and marketing. And that's where like we were able to work on dividing our skill set, as opposed to both of us being equally capable of doing the same things, positively capable of a lot and negatively capable of a lot.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And, I don't think that there was any point where you lacked faith in my attorneying abilities. So you never had to worry about if I was doing a good job practicing law, even when I wasn't sure if I was doing a good job practicing law. And I never lost faith in the fact that you were doing everything that you could to make good business decisions and do leave everything out there for marketing and constantly working to bring in business and put our firm up in the spotlight.
It's interesting though you mentioned how different we are because like do you remember our second date?
Yes.
Okay. So what's your recollection of our second date?
Are we counting the running as the first
No, no,
date?
no. Like you and I at Caddyshanks, I think Florida was playing Arkansas, if I'm not mistaken. That was the game that was on.
Florida versus Arkansas was when we were at, was
No, that
that,
was
no, that
Florida,
was Florida,
Kentucky was our first
Kentucky.
date.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So
Florida
Florida,
was playing
Arkansas.
Arkansas, our second date. We're sitting at Caddyshanks. I don't remember what food we ordered, but like you remember our conversation?
Yeah, I mean, like we talked about everything. We talked about, I'm not the kind of person that wants to waste time. Like I spent a lot of time on all the dating apps, going on a lot of really bad first dates, to the point where one of my
Thankfully
best
not
friends
with,
was like,
well,
he was
yeah.
like, you should write a book about all of your bad first dates. Um,
And for the record, I took Heather to Denny's for our first date. So I don't think we've ever been to Denny's since.
I wasn't concerned about ending up in a body bag at the end of the date, so it wasn't among my worst.
You did have yeah, the willingness for Heather to let me pick her up and know where she lived was the first good sign for me. No, but like what you said, our second date, like we were talking about wanting kids, how to raise kids, our belief in religion, and we have like we have slightly different beliefs and we have different beliefs in the religion, but then slightly different beliefs, but it's a lot more similar in what we see from the difference of the names of the religions, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I am not a good small talk person. I learned recently that I'm this new type of personality, which is an introvert. So I don't have time for small talk, especially in dating. Like maybe I'll go on a second date with you for a really nice dinner, but I have no interest in faking a relationship with somebody that I can't um see myself marrying. And so yeah, so like our second date, we talked about what we wanted in marriage, what we wanted professionally, what we wanted personally, what our lives looked like. And and those core things aligned. Like personality wise, I think you
Right.
and I are very different, but ultimately, and maybe I read too much Reddit, but there conflict always seems to come when people don't have those conversations and knowing that at the end of the day that we are both working towards the same thing, even if we are doing it in very different approaches, was very important.
Right. And so that's like I agree with you that we are very different, but I think we are both very we are both trying to take very different paths to the same endpoint. And I think that's the key for a lot of people. Because like, you talk, are people the same? Are they different? There are so many moments where like I would have filed bankruptcy 100 times if not for Heather. Like genuinely, there was this marketing thing that was like, what would you do if you owned an elephant and how would you market it? And like we went through this so much in my marketing company at the time that I was like, Heather, I want to buy an elephant, and she just gave me the look. And so I did. We don't own an elephant. I never looked into it further than that. But like I talked myself into this ridiculously stupid idea, and there's 100 other ones. That's like the funniest one. So I needed, like I need that balance being pulled back, as much as I think you needed that balance to be pushed. I think you said before, but it's the foundation of having the same big picture, right? Like we can watch, we can take two different paths to the same location, and I think that's the key to enjoying your spouse, significant other, domestic partner, a best friend, whatever it's going to be. In terms of having a great life, you need that other person that you can truly count on, and you need enough differences to try new restaurants and new paths on the way to the same place.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, what are some of the things that you think we've done to have a great relationship still now, 11 plus years of marriage later?
I mean, I think that we still prioritize spending time with each other and spending time with each other in meaningful ways. So, like um, you've probably talked about this before, but Jordan has a Yelp list of things that he wants to do. And it is over 300 bookmarks of not just restaurants, but
Parks,
places and
museums. To,
yeah.
to be fair, one of your colleagues sent us a list of like her 150 favorite places in San Antonio, and so like there that's a huge chunk.
Yeah, we've started to remove like the vegan places.
Right. The vegan
So
places, the wine bars that have no food,
yeah.
the
So,
juice places, but yeah.
yeah, I mean, and it's amazing to me. I kind of thought that everyone did stuff on the weekends or whatever, but I'm finding that we are doing a lot of things in San Antonio that a lot of people who've lived here for their whole lives haven't done. And and it's because that's a priority for us is going and trying new things and seeing as much as we can. And it doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be a 13-month road trip, but um, we try and focus on like what are the things that we enjoy doing together and also like the things that bring out the best in each other. One of the things that we started doing, I don't know, probably 3 years ago now, escape rooms as a family. I think when I did my first one with my sisters, and you were kind of like, oh, like I've done one before, it's okay. And then it was different though, because I think the next one that we did, where you and I did one together, was probably with our firm.
Was it? That was before we did the ones at Universal?
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
It was. And then we're like, oh, like you and I like get it. Like, and then it got to be really fun and exciting. And then once we were able to start bringing Benji and, those things that, bring out our strengths and like complementary strengths. Like Jordan can solve things quickly that are different from what I can solve quickly. And then Benji notices things. And I think, I don't know, just different things that really highlight the parts about our personalities and
Yeah. Well, so like for to use the escape room example, and then I'm going to tie this back into the whole thing. Benji knows like check, move all the rugs, check underneath all the chairs, all the tables, all that. Like he's got the low stuff. Heather is so good at like if it's an organized one, if there's like a book you have to read and go through that helps you, she's good. I just wander around the room and I'll like find random stuff and then so she'll be calling out like, "Hey, we're looking for a four-digit code." And I'm like, "Oh, there's these four different colors on the wall over here." And it works so well. But then I take that back to us figuring out the law firm, right? Like figuring out our different roles. And then I take that back to Elise Bowie telling us to read Fair Play and doing the Fair Play cards. And so, like, I have my specific chores. Like, I have the entire food cycle. I'm doing the food shopping, I'm cooking the food, I'm doing dishes, I'm putting the dishes away. You have the whole laundry cycle. And so, like, not stepping on each other's toes from those standpoints. And when I say not stepping on each other's toes, there are times where Heather will cook a meal or help me with food shopping. There are times where I'll fold stuff, but like I know that like this is your responsibility and this is mine. And the more that you can set those things out in life, the easier it is to set expectations.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's interesting because it like back to the escape rooms, we've had a couple of escape room employees like mention how good we are at communicating. I think one of the big problems that a lot of people have in escape rooms is that, somebody will solve a puzzle and then somebody else didn't realize it. So then they're coming and thinking that there's something else to do there, or people aren't talking about what different things are in the room to try and connect the dots. And so the way that we do that and keep each other in the loop while maintaining, separate responsibilities, I think is important so that um, a lot of it comes back to communication.
Completely. Yeah. And expectations. And so like the thing that I love about fair play is it has that minimum standard of care. And so if you and your spouse, significant other, roommate, whatever, are all responsible for everything, you need to communicate about the minimum standard of care about everything. As opposed to like we've split, and I mean, I'm sure it's not exactly 50-50, right? It's probably 55 you, 45 me in terms of our tasks, although I spend more time with our son. I'm here when he gets home and stuff like that. So it's whatever. It's close to balance, but it's really nice because every 3 months we can sit down and be like, "Hey, what am I doing that is not to your standards?" And it'll be one or two things. And you'll ask the question. It'll be one or two things. And so now it's like, okay, hey, can you do laundry? Can you put the laundry away in this organization instead of that organization? Okay, cool. Can I make sure I always have these drinks? when I'm going food shopping that I check for, some of your stuff. Great. That's so much easier than, oh my God, there's 150 things at the house that like none of us like how they exist.
Yeah. Yeah, and like and having that meeting too to talk about it is also helpful because, there were some things like specifically like sending out Christmas cards that, organizing the photo shoot and then the list and getting it all sent out. It was always so frustrating. And then I said, well, I don't want this card anymore. And and then we both realized that neither of us actually really cared about that stuff. And so we just quit doing it. And so, when we both assign an importance to having these things done and realize that it's really low on the priority list. And maybe at some point we'll sit here and go, this is important to us again. But that really helped as well, because then there wasn't resentment or frustration building about something that neither of us actually cared about.
Yeah. And I think the other thing, um, to go back to fair play, to go back to this unicorn space, right? Like you do a fantastic job making sure I have time in the mornings, right? Like I am running 3 days a week. I'm going to the gym 3 days a week. And don't get me wrong, like the gym, I'm dropping our kid off at school and then going. So it's helpful from that standpoint. But like I know it's really nice to know that like I can get up and go do a bunch of stuff and I'm not needed until, 7:30 to take him here, or I'm not needed until, 4 o'clock for him to be home. I hope you feel the same way.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. My biggest problem is that I don't take my unicorn space as much as I need to. But like I was discussing with Jordan how one of the local universities offers like painting and woodworking classes. And so I was like, hey, like I think I might want to do that. He's like, great, sign up. And so
And put it on the calendar.
and put it on the calendar. Put it on the calendar.
That's my one thing. Just put it, whatever you want to do, just put it on the calendar.
I don't even need to tell him in advance. I got invited to a mom's night out the other night and it was all, and I put it on the calendar and then I let him know about it later. And he's like, great, that's all I need.
Yep, it's on the calendar.
Because not only do we allow each other that space, but I think both of us recognize how much we both need that space. I try to explain this to my son because I am my son's favorite human being. And I think that
And
sometimes,
I am number two, but it's a huge gap. It's a
yeah,
really huge gap.
I think that Benji would choose to crawl back into my womb if I were a kangaroo and just ride around with me all day long. And I tried to explain to him how not everybody is like this, but I am a highly independent person. Like I still think that the couple of years I spent living alone were some
Be
of the best
careful with
years of
those
my
words. Okay, all right, sure.
life.
We're the best years.
um, and I really like silence and I really like my independent time. And when I have been alone in my life, that's when I've really like gotten involved in activities and found hobbies and stuff like that. And I try and explain that to my son when he can't understand why he can't lay with me in bed um, for 2 hours and how I need my alone time. But you and I appreciate that. We both appreciate our alone time
Yeah.
and really kind of push each other to take it.
Well, and it's funny. So, like I mentioned the morning thing, like I have more alone time in the morning. You have more alone time in the evening. And so, like last night, he crawled into bed with me. I think you were downstairs watching TV still, and was like, "I'm giving mommy some alone time." She never gets alone time. And I was like, "Who? What kid is this?" And then apparently 5 minutes later, he left and went to go lay with you because I guess that was sufficient alone time
Yes,
from
no,
his
he
thing.
he came downstairs and he was like, "Well, I wanted to give you some alone time, but then I wondered where you were, and so I wanted to come find you. Can we watch a cooking show?" Like it's 10 o'clock at night. You need to go to bed.
Yeah.
What if the secret to law firm success involved doing less? That's one of the main themes of my book, Love Your Law Firm, where I dive into my story as well as the stories of multiple coaching clients in an effort to help you design the law firm that you've always dreamed of. I hope you'll check it out at Amazon in the link below.
All right, so we talked about you want to find the commonalities on the big stuff. You want to find the differences on the small stuff. You want to prioritize time together. So, like, I think one of the best things we did in San Antonio was as soon as we could, we started trying to find a babysitter or babysitters to go on some dates. You want to have time to yourself. And then you want to have use the same business systems and delegate house stuff as well, just because I think it makes it so much easier for like one, me to get better at cooking and food shopping and all that stuff, and Heather not having to worry about it 99% of the time, and vice versa for laundry and all the other things that you do. What are we missing? What else? What other tips do we have for people in terms of
We
having a great
outsource the
partner?
things that we both really hate.
Ah, good one.
So,
Okay.
for example, on like day 2 of living in our house, the neighbor kid across the street came in and he was like, "Hey, can I mow your lawn?" And I was like, "Sure."
For
Every two
money.
weeks. Yeah. I was like, every 2 weeks. And he's like, "Oh, I just thought like one time." And I was like, "Okay, well, the job is yours if you want it." This kid was going to charge me $20 for a quarter of an acre to mow every 2 weeks. And in good conscience, I pay him a lot more than that. But I used to enjoy mowing our lawn, but I don't anymore. And so that was one thing. And Jordan he was never going to do it. Um, so that was one thing that we outsourced. The housekeeper, uh, we both have a standard of care for our house being clean.
That a almost 8-year-old will not live up to and will aggressively destroy in 20 minutes.
Yeah. And the funny thing is that your standard of care for being clean is different from mine. Like mine is like dirt and grime. Like I want like toilets scrubbed and
Oh,
countertop, like all of
right.
that.
You don't
Jordan's
want
is
dirt and
like
grime.
messiness and clutter.
Right. Or I mean like I don't want things dirty, but I will notice disorganization sooner than I'll notice a lack of cleanliness, and you will notice cleanliness a lot sooner than you will notice a lack of organization.
Yes. But yeah, I mean, it's incredible the ability of our child to take a completely clean room and just destroy it in like 3 minutes.
Yeah,
So
it's
having a
impressive.
housekeeper is one of the things that really has made an impact on our quality of life. And we've had one for what, uh, since our child's been
Ever?
alive?
Yeah. I mean, and look, as a business owner, especially like personal injury law, right? My landscaper in Florida sent us business a handful of times. Our housekeeper sent us business, made connections for us, invited us to events. Like you can, you are better off spending more money for somebody else who's taking the same value of running a business for these other things as you are to yours because they will be in rooms. They will help you get in rooms. They will make connections to people. And so like my financial advisor, whatever my financial advisor charges me is in fees, which isn't crazy anyway, he has more than made up for in the referrals and connections he's made for us for more cases. And so like a lot of times we get stuck on, oh, I can't afford these things, but if you are going to get referrals and you have that conversation, you find the right people, they're going to pay for themselves 10 times over in a way that's not like a win-loss, in a way that's a win-win. Like they like having, oh my God, one of my employees got into a car accident. I know exactly who to send them to. Like that's a win for them just as much as me, talking to a friend that opens up their office, being like, I know who you need to go clean your office. Like we're all going to get benefit from this.
That's exactly the pitch that he made to this girl raised by Midwestern farm parents who do everything on their own. And, when we first got married and he wanted to start hiring people, and I just thought, but we can do it on our own and save all this money. And then well, first of all, the first time somebody mowed my lawn and I didn't have to do it, I was like, this is great. But then when we started seeing business and referrals from it, it all really clicked.
Well, but you earlier you mentioned how many people have like come to you. We've been in San Antonio for 6 months. Like, oh my God, Heather and Jordan, you guys are doing stuff. I think a lot of that's that because a lot of people I think are spending their entire weekend mowing their lawn and cleaning their house and doing. And don't get me wrong, like we still rake leaves here and there. We still clean up our own house at multiple times a week anyway. But like we don't have to do all of these things, right? We can do 60%, 80%, whatever, and then use the rest of the time to go try new restaurants, go on a hike, experience the city, hang out with friends. Like it's just been nice to build a sense of community would be that much harder if we never left our house because we were doing all the chores.
Yep. Jordan even bought me a second vacuum recently so that I can
For
have
first night of Hanukkah.
an upstairs vacuum and a downstairs vacuum.
I, To be fair, our downstairs vacuum, I bought that when I moved to college. It is like 20 something years old. It still works. It's great. So I found as close as I could to the exact same one. And Heather, and let's be real. You told me in advance that you wanted a second vacuum for upstairs. So it was not the traditional jerk husband buying your wife a vacuum. It
Yeah,
was truly something that you were expecting, or something that you had asked for that I could provide.
yeah. So I think that that's one thing that has really it made it a lot easier as business partners, in addition to a married couple, was the outsourcing of a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean, all of us should spend more time doing the things that we're the best at and
Mhm.
less time dabbling in other things.
Yeah, well, and the fair play cards help with that. I mean, I can't even express like the gap between Jordan and I in things like tech. And I would get so frustrated trying to fix things because I didn't want to ask him for help, or, sometimes he'd say like, well, can't you figure this out? Or I've showed you this before or whatever. And now I can say like, you have the tech card. I don't have to learn this. Like it's your job to fix it. Like this thing is broken. So, and there's no argument because we've siloed those responsibilities. So it doesn't matter if he showed it to me 1,000 times. It just like we just accept that I'm never going to be the person in the family that fixes things of a technical nature. And
You mean you don't want to sit down with ChatGPT and create Python coding programs like I've been doing?
no, but I am interested in that AI chatbot that you mentioned for interviewing my students.
Oh yeah, I'm
So
I'm building it for the series.
yeah,
Okay,
and I
cool.
actually I actually mentioned that to one of the other professors, and she's like, "That's an amazing way to introduce AI to our students." So I think it has the possibility to take off.
I dig it. Cool. All right,
I mean,
so
that's the other cool thing though, is that like we have those conversations about the your interests and strengths and figure out how we can use it to make each other's lives better.
I love it. All right, so let me talk about next week, and then we'll come back for final thoughts here. Next week, we've got Kevin Daisy on from Array Digital, one of my favorite legal marketing people. We were able to hang out with Kevin in person in Nashville recently, and so I'm so super excited to have him on the episode and chat through how having a better life helps you with marketing, how finding better marketing lets you run a better life. Like it's going to be a really great chat. So we'll see you back here next week for that. In the meantime, Heather, any final thoughts? Things we did not cover in this episode, most important takeaways?
I mean, we still like each other.
Yes. Yeah, the thing for me, and to me the best advice is not business advice, it's not relationship advice, it's just life advice, right? The better that you can delegate something very clearly to somebody else, the better your life's going to get. And so that could be delegating things to your spouse, and at the same time, having things delegated from your spouse, delegating to your staff, delegating to your kids. Like, we don't need to be responsible for everything. And the less what is it? Mental load. That's the fair play
Mhm.
talks about. Like, the more you get the mental load out of your head of the billion things that need to happen in life, the easier you can focus on the things that really matter and the people that really matter, right? Like it'd be really easy to cancel date night because we have to go mow the lawn, we have to figure out insurance, we have to do this, as opposed to like, I have an insurance guy and I'm willing to pay the extra so that they can take care of that. And I've got a lawn guy and I'm willing to pay the extra so they can take care of that so we can spend the time together because like I'm not outsourcing, us going to the Tower of Americas and seeing San Antonio from 750 feet up. Like that's not an experience that I want somebody else to have with you. I want to make sure I'm there. You're welcome to go with anybody else. I don't, that sounded weird, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, and I think like ultimately it all comes down to like our core life goals, like we could be making career decisions that generate more income or prestige or whatever. But one of the cool things, and this isn't why I took the job, but it's one of the perks, is that this law school has a study abroad program in Austria that I'll have the opportunity to teach at probably summer of 2027 or summer of 2028. And, one of the things that we've talked about is wanting to travel and wanting to be able to expose our child to that. And so we've talked about, well, when I get that opportunity, we're all going and we're going to go for the whole summer and we're going to see Spain and Austria and maybe Germany. And because we both have that common goal of wanting to have experiences and wanting to share those experiences, it's not just about like, I want to travel to Austria, that's cool, but I want to do it with my family. I want to do it with my husband and I want to do it with my kid. And I want to have these experiences together. That we make decisions about our careers and our lives so that we get to have those opportunities.
I love it. All right, so
I love you.
I love you. So I'll see everybody back here next week for Kevin Daisy's episode. In the meantime, thank you all for watching, listening, joining us. Heather, thank you so much for joining. And for those of you that don't know, not only do I love my wife, and we had a bunch of people reschedule and we're coming right back from the holidays. So I was like, hey, can you come on tomorrow so you can fill this slot so we can get this edited and going? And she said yes. So extra thank you for jumping on in a not emergency because it's a podcast, but
This is the millennial heart.
the millennial heart,
There's like a
sun,
Gen Z one where you've got like weird
sunset heart hands.
finger things like this. This is the Gen.
I don't know. All
We're
right.
old.
We're old. But we're old together. That being said, again, thank you to everybody who watched. Enjoy this Friday's newsletter about running your firm like Ted Lasso. We'll see you back here next week.